So you want to start a passion project, but you're not really sure where to begin. Well, you are in luck because today I'm going to be breaking down the steps on how to create a passion project that can actually create some real positive impact. What's up? My name is Dylan Nellis. I am a college admissions coach and the founder of NextGen Admit. We help high-achieving students just like you create standout applications that get accepted to their dream schools. I also recently graduated from Stanford University, and while I was at Stanford, my passion project was this. It was NextGen Admit, my YouTube channel, which eventually became my business and is now my full-time job. It is so good that you are here right now wanting to create a passion project because they are so valuable for your own growth, and it can help you clarify your direction in life, and you just gain so many skills through hands-on experience that you wouldn't in any other classroom. I know that I can definitely speak to that myself because I felt like I learned more about business and marketing than I could have ever learned at Stanford, just by going through the trial and error of figuring it out on my own and making it happen. Now, today we are going to get into the steps of how to actually create a passion project, but I do want to say, if you are looking for a handy dandy resource to speed all of this up, then I actually created a passion project generator that will take your personal interests and experiences and activities and create 5 personalized passion project ideas that align with your interests. It's really cool. So many students have really been enjoying it, and they're like, oh my God, you're a lifesaver. Like, now I figured out what I want to do. So I highly recommend checking it out. It's completely free and you can try it. It seriously doesn't take much time. It's at nextgenadmit.com/passion-project. I hope you guys enjoy it because I found that the ideas it spits out are pretty cool and really personalized to you and your own interests. Now, first, I want to briefly touch on what even is a passion project and how do passion projects help you stand out in college admissions. So a passion project is something that you do outside of the classroom. Usually this is something that is independently led, it's not part of any program or organization or class. It is something that you just did because you felt passionate about it. That could be anything from coding a game, starting a nonprofit, creating an educational program, creating a book, writing an album, leading a social justice initiative, building or prototyping a new product, or starting a business. The key to what makes a passion project is that it is something you are doing on your own, something you are genuinely passionate about, and something that can hopefully create positive impact on your community or the world at large. What's so great about passion projects and why college admissions officers love them so much is that it shows that you are doing things beyond the classroom. You are going above and beyond to pursue your intellectual vitality, to pursue the things that make you curious, to solve the problems that you care deeply about. The kind of work that you do outside of the classroom in your own personal projects, it's like a direct example of the kind of work you'll be doing on their campus, right? Because colleges want students who are going to take advantage of their resources and their support and go on to change the world. What I really want to emphasize is that passion projects are all about genuine passion and impact. So you never want to do a passion project just because it looks good on college apps or it seems cool. There should be a reason that is fueling you internally to go and execute it. It is so important that you go into this with the right motivations because it is going to influence the steps that you take and how you approach the entire project. And if you don't go into it with good intentions, your project's not gonna be very good. Now, a lot of people will ask me,
well, is it too late to start a passion project? When is it too late?
Stop worrying about whether it's too late and just start. Like, honestly, you can create a passion project at any time because remember, it is not about the result or the college admissions boost. It is because you genuinely want to do it for your own learning and to actually help people in the community. You can start a passion project at any age, even if you're a senior in high school. Yes, go and do it. Start now. That takes me to the steps. How do you start? What is the process? Here is how you start a passion project in high school, step by step. The first step is need finding. What is need finding? So need finding is actually a term that is used in the design thinking process. Design thinking is a term coined by a Stanford professor who is actually my major advisor. And it is a way in which you create solutions to problems, generally speaking. Design thinking can be applied to literally anything, and it is one thing that Stanford like really promotes, but a lot of other schools really value it as well, and it's a great process. So that's what I want to teach you today. Need finding is the first step in that process, where you first need to understand what are the needs? What are the problems that exist? Because you can never create a solution if you're not creating it for a specific problem. This is where we'll often see a lot of innovations or technology that people are like,
why do I need this? Why was this invented? This isn't actually solving a problem. Did you actually seek to understand my needs as a user before you went and created this?
I don't want you to waste time, and I don't want you to create a project that doesn't help anybody. If you want your project to have impact, you have to actually deeply understand the problem you are trying to solve. So, ask yourself, what are problems that you have faced in your personal experience? Or what are problems that you notice in your own community, that you notice your friends are facing, people at your school, your parents, your family? For example, maybe you work at your parents' restaurant and you notice that the way that they do their operations is not really optimized, and there could be a way better process to help the operations that will take less time, be less expensive, and less of a headache for everyone involved. Boom, there's a problem. And I bet you a lot of other businesses and organizations are experiencing very similar problems. So you can create a solution related to that. Step 2 is user research. Once you've identified the problem, you need to do research to deeply understand it and understand the pain points that people who experience this problem actually feel. So I would recommend actually setting up interviews with people. You can say to your friend or say to your parent, whoever's experiencing the problem, hey, could we just talk for like 20 minutes and have a nice set of questions that you are ready to ask them, take notes, and try to get to the deeper level, deeper and deeper, to understand what the real problem is. Because oftentimes you may realize that the problem is not what you initially thought it was. There is something deeper where it actually stems from, and that's the real problem that needs to be addressed. You're also gonna wanna do some outside research beyond talking to users or people. You wanna go on the internet, look things up. What are articles saying about this? What are other research papers that have been published on this topic? What other solutions exist for this problem? Make sure you're not reinventing the wheel. And then through that research, you will have a deeper understanding of the issue or the situation at hand. And then by researching other competitors or other solutions, you can realize, oh, well, yes, this solves this problem, but I talked to my users and they actually have this other side problem that is related, and I can create something about that. So then that takes me to step 3, brainstorm possible solutions. This is where a lot of students will start. They'll start the process being like,
ooh, let me think about what I can create.
Hold on. We need to address the problem first. So I'm glad that by watching this video, we've already covered step 1 and step 2 to make sure that you have that deep understanding first of what the problem even is and what the pain points are. So then you are creating solutions that directly target those pain points. This is the point where our tool that we created comes in handy. Now that you understand the scope of the problem, you can put that into the tool that we created for you and then get personalized recommendations on what you can do to solve that exact problem. Again, you can access that in the description below or just visit nextgenadmit.com/passion-project. When you brainstorm solutions, I want to make sure that you're first allowing your mind to be free. A lot of times we can start filtering ourselves before we've even created anything. And so if you keep going,
yeah, well, that's a bad idea. Oh, well, I can't do that because of XYZ. Or, oh, there's this limitation.
You are already limiting yourself and not letting yourself get to the cool and new and unconventional ideas that could come from these unreasonable, wacky ones first. So just generate as many as you can at first. Don't filter yourself. Don't worry if it's not fully feasible, because eventually you will start to create new and interesting ideas that maybe are a bit more feasible or realistic. From there, from all of your generations, you can then narrow down the ones that are more practical or that you are most interested in or that align with your skill sets or the resources that you have available to you. Step 4, this is optional, but I would recommend assembling a team. A team is really great if you want to work with other people who might offer new perspectives and skill sets that can help you execute the project. It is really hard to do things alone. And I say this as someone who often tries. Like, yes, I've built this business primarily by myself and I handle literally everything. I wear all the hats and it's a lot of work and it's taken a lot of time. I've been doing this for so many years now. But what I've realized is that it is so valuable to have other people on your team to help you out, especially other people who have skill sets that I might not necessarily have. And so they are providing more value and helping the whole project with their unique insight. Now, a passion project does not necessarily have to be just by yourself. I know that sometimes people get confused about that. It's like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be an independent thing. It doesn't have to be. You know, colleges are not gonna be like,
Oh, well, they worked with a team. That looks bad.
no, they value collaboration. Of course, they want that, and they want you to collaborate with other peers on their college campus. So yes, they want to see that you are working with other people as well. So it is great if you can get together with a couple other friends and figure out how your skill sets complement each other to help create this project. Now, of course, it does involve a little bit more management, and you will need to assign roles so that, you know, two people don't end up thinking that they have to do the same task and there's no weird complications or communication problems. That's where you have to develop even more skills on how to effectively build and manage a team. So for example, one person who might be better at writing and communicating can do a lot of the research or write-ups, or handle the email inbox, or handle establishing partnerships, whereas someone who is more tech savvy can focus on the actual building of the product or application or whatever it is. Step 5, you want to set achievable goals. I know a project like this can feel like a big undertaking, and that can get really overwhelming. And when it's so overwhelming and seems like this big scary monster, oftentimes you will procrastinate because taking any step at all feels too scary. And oftentimes you don't even know what step to take. That's why you want to set SMART goals. SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So you always want to break your tasks into smaller, specific ones and outline the progress. You know, what are the milestones that I need to hit? Okay, what are the tasks that I need to complete in order to reach each milestone? So then you're not looking at the whole big picture, getting so overwhelmed by all you have to do. You can just say, oh, look, I'm focusing on this one little milestone right now. I'm gonna work on these tasks, and that's all I need to focus on. That will keep your head way more clear, so you know exactly what steps you need to take to eventually reach the end goal. So for an example, instead of saying, I need to establish a partnership with this organization, you can break that into smaller tasks. Like first, I need to research this person and this organization. Then I need to write up the partnership agreement. You know, all of those little steps that come in between, write those out. Then your tasks won't seem so scary after all. Step 6, you want to set a timeline. Right now that you have all of these tasks written out, you need to make sure that you can do them and execute them in a timely manner. So I want you to assign realistic deadlines for these tasks, and especially if you're working with a team, you know, assign different tasks for each team member. Oh, also, I just remembered, one thing I love to use is a task management platform called ClickUp. This is not an ad, I literally just recalled it right now. I use it to manage my own business, and I would seriously recommend using it as well. It will make your life so much easier because you can assign different tasks and rules and have different lists with different tasks in them, depending on the person or the project, however you want to organize it. I actually made a free template to manage all of your tasks, so I'll link that in the description as well. Definitely check that out. Step 7 is to be resourceful. I seriously feel like resourcefulness is one of the best qualities that someone could have, because it allows you to figure things out and get what you want by going out and looking for it. We are in the digital age, my friends, and that means countless resources are at your fingertips. All you have to do is go and look for them. When I do anything, I look it up on YouTube. I will look up a YouTube tutorial, I will learn about it on YouTube, or, you know, articles, videos, research, whatever. Read books, watch videos, go to a workshop. If you see an event, go to it. Network with people at those events, learn from them, save their contact information, set up a Zoom call, chat after, have a coffee date. You want to invest your time in active learning and gaining resources that will help you succeed. It's so easy to look at other people and be like,
Oh my God, well, how did they get all that? They just had it easy, you know? They just had it handed to them. They already had those resources and connections.
not necessarily. You don't always know their story, and a lot of times you will realize people people just went out and looked for them. So you have to be proactive in being resourceful and looking for those resources to help you. I have found really amazing mentorship programs for my business or courses that I've enrolled in just from Googling, just from going on YouTube or Google and just looking around. All you have to do is start. And that leads me to step 8, find a mentor. Mentors are so helpful because it helps you, one, not feel like you're doing everything alone, and also you can trust their advice. They have been there before, they have done similar things, and so they can guide you in the right direction. Plus, they can give you even more resources to learn more or find, tools or skills that you need to execute whatever it is. You can cold email people, but oftentimes that is a bit harder. You can cold DM people on Instagram, but you can also go to events, meet people in person, see what's going on. And from there, other people will be willing to connect you to their connection. And then it just becomes this domino effect. And you're finding that you're building a community, and it's actually really amazing because each of those people have new insights and things to share. Step 9, test and iterate. Iteration is such a big part of the design thinking process, or just any process of building anything, let's be honest. You rarely ever create the best thing on the first go, and then it's all done. No, you have to test it. See if it works. See if it actually does the thing that you want it to. It's really, really great if you can get user feedback, direct feedback from people who have tested and tried your product or solution or whatever it is. That way you can make improvements and iterate on it, and so the next time around it's even better. Again, the goal is not to just make something. The goal is to make something good, something useful, something valuable, that you can actually make an impact on the world. And also, you're going to continue learning so much through that iterative process, and that itself is going to be so valuable for you to grow as a person and develop new skills. So in terms of getting user feedback, you can create a survey, or you can talk to people directly, again, through user interviews, or you can even do an observational study, watching how people use your project. Iteration and testing is a continual process, so you will likely need to do multiple rounds of this over and over and over again. And it may be ongoing. Like with my business, it's ongoing forever. I am constantly changing and updating new things, learning from new people, adjusting my curriculum in my course, changing the way that I market myself so it's more in line with my values, and most importantly, more in line with solving my users' pain points. Because at the end of the day, I'm trying to help people, not just create a project. And lastly, step 10, we can't forget to celebrate. Celebrate your achievements and celebrate your milestones. I want you to acknowledge the progress you've made, see how far you have come, instead of just waiting to celebrate once you create the final perfect thing. Because it may never be perfect, and that's okay. Perfect is boring. We want things to be interesting and constantly happening because that's how learning happens. So no matter how big or how small, I want you to celebrate your wins and recognize that you're pretty awesome. Even just putting yourself out there and trying. I don't care if it fails. If you tried, you put in that effort, that is worth acknowledging. That's a win. Because those failures and those experiences are going to always teach you valuable lessons and skills that you can take with you for the next time around. And that, my friends, is how you create a passion project. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments what's one takeaway that you had from this video. If one thing stood out to you, what was it? And stick around because I make tons of college application and college admissions related videos, and I am here again to help you succeed and achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.